Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was in Star Wars. Revan and Naruto, immortal beings, return to the Republic as it heads towards war once again. What events will these two alter? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 35. Namake's Apartments, Jedi Temple. Yoda looked around and reached out with the Force. With a sigh he summoned his hover chair, and went looking for the three wayward children that had moments ago been speaking with their parents. HK, seen the children, have you? Yoda inquired and blinked, finding the droid along with the three children missing. Not good. No, not good at all. The aged Jedi Master said as he left the Namake's apartments. Yoda didn't have trouble looking for the three children and droid, for where they went chaos was soon to ensue. He entered the training room to see it looking like someone had set off a thermal detonator. Master Yoda. Cin Dralig said, straightening his tunic. The weapons master's face was covered in soot and the weapons rack was destroyed. Inquire to what happened, I do not need to know. Yoda said. Which way did they go? Cin looked down for a moment, then pointed. That way. Yoda left while Cin went to find some help to repair the training room. Yoda's next stop was the meditation hall. He frowned at what looked like a massive pillow fight had taken place, as there wasn't a cushion left untouched. Feathers floated in the air and several of the knights looked rather guilty when they saw Yoda. Yoda's eyes came to rest on the chuckling form of Qui-Gon Jinn, who since Obi-Wan had made knight had spent more time in the temple working with the younglings. Good day, Master Yoda. Qui-Gon said. The last 10 years had aged him, and despite being in his 70s he carried himself like a man in his 40s still. Master Qui-Gon. 3 strays have I come searching for. Yoda said. Qui-Gon smirked. Lost 3 wee ones have you? He said, and Yoda knew his friend was going to tease him for this later. I think they were heading to the Hall of 1,000 Fountains. He began, and Yoda's eyes widened at this. Now I need to see housekeeping and see if we can get the meditation mats and cushions replaced. Qui-Gon hurried away, but Yoda heard his chortle and knew he was in for a long day and night. Come on, Kushina. Hurry up. Anko said as the 3 children managed to avoid getting caught. HK, come on. The youngest of the Namake's children said as she tugged on the droid's arm. Statement, Mistress will not approve of your methods. The assassin droid said. Correction, however, Master will find the ensuing chaos hilarious. Haku and Anko shared a look. While their mother was more strict, their father would encourage them to do almost anything in the name of learning, and as long as no one was hurt. I say we get a speeder. Anko said. Haku shook her head. Mom and Dad both said we can't fly a speeder until we're Padawans. Then Dad said it's Uncle Ben's problem. Anko gave her sister a grin. But that hasn't stopped either of them showing us how to pilot, has it? Haku had to agree, both parents taught them how to pilot, and in their mother's case work on and maintain numerous craft, both telling the kids don't tell your mother/father we're doing this. Which was followed by a wink and a new lesson in something, or in their father's case a new jutsu, or a trip to Dex's diner for ramen, or as their father said, the closest thing to it in the galaxy. Kushina sighed as she listened to her older sisters talk and looked at the assassin droid that was with her. HK, you and Daddy take on some missions, right? Affirmative. Statement, Master and I do a lot of bounty hunting work as well as. That's great, HK. Kushina said, cutting the droid off. What if we wanted you to take us on a mission with you? HK took a microsecond to ponder the question. We need to leave the temple. HK finally admitted. Kushina turned to her sisters. You heard HK, so we'll take a speeder. Haku hesitated while Anko gave a grin that matched her father's whenever the blonde was about to do something that would either be funny or get him in a ton of trouble. All 3 girls had inherited the grin, and the knights and masters in the temple usually ran the other way when they saw it. "Temple hangar it is," Anko said, and turned a corner. Elsewhere in the temple, Master Yoda had a shiver run up his spine. "Naboo consulate. Why aren't you with the senator?" Naruto asked Obi-Wan. "She went to bed," Obi-Wan Kenobi said. Naruto frowned and went to the bank of monitors. "She's covered the camera," he said. "She said she didn't want us watching her sleep," Obi-Wan said, and which was true, but Padme had teased him before going to bed and phrased it in a way that had the Jedi Knight blushing, which he was glad that neither Revan or Naruto had been present for. "She took her R2 unit in with her," Obi-Wan said. Naruto remembered the spunky little droid that had saved the ship while under fire and allowed them to escape Naboo and run the Trade Federation's blockade. Revan entered and looked at the monitor. "I'm going to box that girl's ears," she said, and was nearly to the door when all three Jedi felt it. "Trouble," Obi-Wan said, and Naruto vanished with a shunshin. Padme had just rolled over when she felt a weight land on the bed and opened her eyes to see Naruto with a lightsaber in hand decapitate two centipede-like creatures. R2 came awake and was scanning the room, the domed head turned towards the window where a delivery droid was hovering. "On it," Naruto said, deactivating his lightsaber. Obi-Wan beat him and crashed through the window and grabbed the droid. It gave a shriek and took off with Obi-Wan holding on beneath it. "Damn," Naruto said, watching them go. "I wanted to do that." Revan smacked him on the arm. "Get to the speeder and follow." She looked at the guards. "Take the senator to the safe room. Do not open it until we return," she said, even as Naruto was running down the side of the building using chakra. Typho didn't get a chance to ask a question as Revan's hand blurred through a series of hand seals she learned during her time as a ninja when she along with Naruto lived on his native world of Ibanez. She leapt out the window, landing on the back of a massive raven. "Follow that droid," she ordered. The bird beat its massive wings and took flight. "What was that?" Captain Typho asked before escorting the dazed senator to the safe room. The two dead centipedes left in the room with R2-D2 and the broken window as the only testament that something had taken place in that room moments ago. Naruto reached the ground and jumped in the airspeeder, slapping the ignition and throwing it into reverse, and then forward without stopping, the engine whining in protest. He looked up to see his wife riding atop the boss Raven, the summon slipping around traffic with ease. She destroyed Sasuke's place looking for it, and once she found it, the Ravens were pleased with her as their new summoner. Naruto thought as he flew madly against traffic as he tried to catch up to Ben and the droid. The Raven contract had been lost after Sasuke had killed Itachi, and it had been after Sasuke and the Akatsuki's destruction when they were searching Sasuke's hideout that Raven found the scroll and kept it as a spoil of war. Shaking his head, Naruto flew the speeder above the lane of traffic and saw Obi-Wan and his droid were veering into busier traffic. "Crap," Naruto mentally cursed. "We need that droid, or at the very least see where it goes," he thought. Naruto admitted that Obi-Wan was doing very well holding on to the droid. Naruto weaved and saw his wife atop her raven, and he saw her preparing another jutsu. We piss off a majority of the council with our abilities, but we get assigned more missions because of what we can do," Naruto thought. They were coming around a sharp turn and Naruto frowned as he saw a speeder and his head turned. "What the hell are the kids and HK doing out of the temple?" Shaking his head, he tapped his comlink. "Rev." "Busy," came the reply. "Our children are out for a joyride," Naruto said into the communicator. A sigh came back. "We have to deal with this now. Yoda will catch your children and we'll discuss punishment later." There was a pause. "Tell me that they at least had HK with them." "Yeah, he was in the back seat, it looked like. I think Anko was piloting," he said with a hint of pride. Revan said nothing, but across the bond he could feel her pride as well as her annoyance at their children. Obi-Wan was cursing his rashness. This is the kind of thing Naruto does. The Jedi Knight thought as he struggled to maintain his grip. Blasted droid, hold still. Obi-Wan cursed as he was nearly smacked across an incoming speeder. He blinked and twisted inside, seeing the familiar children and droid. They are a handful, he thought, and wasn't looking forward to being a master to the twins. I'll either be gray or bald before they become knights. He thought and knew that he would be there when the Namikaze spoke with their children. Turning back to the direction the droid was taking them, he saw the figure on a ledge by several signs lift up a rifle. Oh crap! He said seconds before the droid he was holding onto exploded, and he began to freefall to the ground far below. Chapter 36. Obi-Wan hated flying, because there was the logic in his mind: if you flew, you would crash. As the droid exploded, he let go seconds before saving his hands from becoming heavily damaged. He cursed his luck as he was falling, and this time he couldn't even blame Naruto, as he had made the choice to be impulsive. Wonderfully done. This is usually Naruto's thing. I'm never going to live this down, if I live. Obi-Wan thought as he was passing through traffic, amazed that he hadn't ended up as a hood decoration or a smudge on a cockpit. The roar of an engine caught his attention, and he saw a speeder angling with him. The familiar sight of blonde hair caused him to relax, and he used the force to cushion himself as he landed in a heap in the rear seat. Hey Ben! Naruto greeted him, and Obi-Wan could hear the laughter in his friend's voice already. Don't you know you can't fly without a speeder? Or in your wife's case a giant bird? Obi-Wan said, sitting up, and realized Naruto had already pulled the speeder up and was giving chase. They were well behind Revan, who was now after a speeder. Looked like a bounty hunter, Naruto said as Obi-Wan climbed over the seats and strapped himself in. I didn't get a good look, but I think it was a woman, Obi-Wan offered. Naruto nodded as he pushed the speeder faster. What took you so long? Obi-Wan asked. Oh, you know, the usual. I had to find the right color, the speeder had to have great acceleration, and I just couldn't find one I liked. Obi-Wan shook his head. You, my friend, are insane. It took you this long to figure it out? Naruto teased as he maneuvered the speeder through traffic, nearly causing several accidents as he cut across oncoming traffic. Did I see the children earlier? Obi-Wan asked, trying to hide his fear of flying by keeping himself occupied. Yeah, and it looked like they had HK with them, but I didn't see Master Yoda, Naruto said. Obi-Wan groaned as he recalled the last time the twins were out of the temple without a Jedi with them. I think the Quarren embassy has shoot on-site orders for them still. Naruto shrugged, unconcerned. They'll be fine. I just wonder what they are going to do this time. Revan growled as she saw the speeder take the long way around. Go over the buildings, she ordered the giant raven. It didn't answer, but beat its wings as it did as ordered. Beloved, Revan sent back over the bond and her idea. Naruto agreed, and she looked over her shoulder to see the bright yellow speeder shoot into a tunnel. One of us will get that hunter, she swore. Was that Mom? Kushina asked. Affirmative, HK said. Anko snorted. No, we're not going back. She saw a speeder pass by and waved to her father before gunning the accelerator and taking a tunnel that would save them time. And that was Dad, Haku said. I think I saw Uncle Ben holding onto a orb droid. Go and help? Kushina asked from her seat in the back. HK felt a moment of panic at what the mistress would say. Negative. Statement, Mistress and Master are on duty, it is Jedi business. Tracking the bounty, we decided on, is ours. Amendment, unless you wish to return to the temple now. Sorrowful retraction, this HK unit will comply. Oh hell no, Anko said. We're having an adventure. Besides, it'll take them a couple of hours to finish repairing the hangar. Haku nodded. I think we used too much chakra blasting the door open with that fire jutsu. Anko snorted again. Told him to open it. Kushina in the back was currently performing the leaf balance exercise. HK's optics were locked on, and was trying to understand more about chakra, as the children like his masters were able to use the strange energy source that had proven to be a source of great destruction and continued to fascinate the assassin droid with what could be done with chakra. The assassin droid spent countless hours watching Naruto train the children in the ninja arts, and for the first time as long as it could remember it envied the meatbags. You do know we're going to get scolded. Haku reminded her sister. Anko snorted. If we're going to get yelled at, might as well make it worth it. Anko said, paraphrasing her father. Haku nodded at the logic. In for a credit, in for a cruiser. Kushina remained quiet as she was working on her lesson that her father had given her before he'd left. She knew she was a daddy's girl, and she didn't really want to be a Jedi, she wanted to be a ninja like her daddy. Where did you say that informant suggested we look for the target, HK? Anko called over her shoulder. Entertainment District. Statement, it's the other way. Anko cursed as she switched the clutch and gunned the speeder down what was an access tunnel for emergency vehicles, and then up between two of the skyscrapers like towers, before skimming across another set of buildings. Hope no one opens a window. Haku muttered as her sister was flying like a combat pilot under heavy fire. The sound of sirens had all three children turn to see Coruscant police giving chase. How fast are we going? Haku asked. Anko scowled. Buckle up. They aren't taking us without a fight. Kushina added, we'll die first. Haku, the more logical of the three, sighed. That's what I'm afraid of. She muttered as she tightened the seatbelt. Inquiry, should I open fire, little mistresses? HK inquired with a hopeful glee. No. All three children knew the last thing they needed was for the assassin droid to open fire on CPF. Hold on. Anko called as she put the speeder on a nearly vertical dive, passing through traffic at a breakneck speed. We'll loose them in the lower levels, she said, seeing the cloud bank coming up. Are you insane? Mom forbade us from going down there. Haku said. Would you rather sit in jail? Anko fired back and they hit the darkness of the lower levels, Anko pulling the speeder into what was an abandoned building and shut it down. Kushina, shut HK down. Statement, I prot, SSSSSS, the assassin droid said as Kushina turned him off, his red optical sensors going black as the police speeders went past. That was close, Anko said with a grin. Revan growled as she saw the assassin speeder, but her ride still couldn't catch it. It was then she felt it in the force and watched as Naruto, who had exited the tunnel across from her, leap out of the speeder and leave Obi-Wan at the controls. She forces leapt across the chasm and landed in the pilot's seat, even as the giant Raven vanished back to the summon realm. Mind if I fly? She asked Ben, who actually looked surprised to see her. Not at all. He looked over the side as Revan brought the speeder's engines back online. I hate when he does that. Revan laughed, it was something only her or Naruto would do. She hit the accelerator and aimed the speeder in time to see Naruto land on the roof of the bounty hunter speeder. Lucky landing, love, she sent over the bond. You call it luck, I call it skill, Naruto sent back, and she felt his annoyance as a blaster bolt exploded from the roof. Master Revan? Obi-Wan asked. We'll keep back to follow. I think the hunter just became the prey. On the speeder's roof, Naruto used chakra to hold on and stood looking down. That nearly hit me, he yelled. 3 more blaster shots exploded upwards, and thanks to the force he avoided them, and thanks to decades of chakra training he held on while standing. That's it. Naruto snarled and his right hand came up, and in it was the spiraling blue form of the first stage of the Rasengan. You're landing, Naruto said, slamming his hand down on the rear of the craft. The engine stood no chance as the Rasengan shredded the housing, and then the engine in a matter of seconds. The flames created smoke and the craft started to descend, its engine making a whining sound as its speed increased as it went in for a crash landing. Naruto leapt from the ship before impact. He heard the bounty hunter inside cursing. Naruto rolled and came up to his feet and saw the roof explode upwards and the bounty hunter ejected and ran for the nearest building. A nightclub. Naruto growled. He got a better look and the bounty hunter was female, and he saw the face changing. A shapeshifter. He muttered and turned, feeling the presence of his wife. Nice, she said as her and Obi-Wan exited the speeder. What took you so long? He asked, echoing Obi-Wan's question from before. Oh, nothing matched my robes. Revan shot back. Naruto smiled and gestured. Our hunter is female and a shifter from what I saw. You saw? Obi-Wan asked with a hint of disbelief. Was that before or after you blew the speeder up under you? Now, Ben. It didn't hit anyone and I'm fine, Naruto said. Obi-Wan walked ahead of the Namikaze, muttering about insane blondes, and how he was likely to go gray before he was 40. Naruto looked at his wife. You want to keep watch out here? He asked. Revan sighed. Fine. Go inside and play. Tell Ben to lay off the Juma juice. Naruto grinned and stepped into the bar. Obi-Wan was waiting, his eyes scanning. What do you suggest? You look around, Obi-Wan suggested to his friend. I'm getting a drink. Naruto grinned. A drink? Really, Ben, was my flying that bad? Yes, and your wife is even worse, Obi-Wan Kenobi said as he headed towards the bar and ordered a drink. Naruto slowly maneuvered around the room. He could sense the bounty hunter was here, but not where. He saw patrons drinking, playing games and betting on robot football, and several pod races taking place from different venues near the outer rim. Pod racing isn't as great as swoop racing. Those big engines mean very little. He thought after his wife had taken the time to teach him how to ride a swoop bike. Naruto continued to wander the bar. He saw Obi-Wan use the Force on some guy and knew he'd have to get the story of that later. Since Padme showed up, he's become more reckless. The thought of his friend bending the rules made Naruto smile. Rev won't let me lock them in the Falcon's cargo hold until they have sex. I need to give him a hand or he'll be a lonely Jedi hermit on some moon living his days alone, Naruto thought. He was just passing Ben when the Force flared, and he spun at the same time that Obi-Wan's lightsaber ignited and destroyed the blaster that had been aimed at his back. The bounty hunter went down as the kunai Naruto had thrown buried into her shoulder. Your shifter? Obi-Wan asked with a drawl. Naruto looked at the clothes and nodded. He looked around the cantina that had fallen silent. Jedi business, go about your business, he said. Grabbed the bounty hunter's other arm, hauling her to her feet, while Obi-Wan grabbed the injured one, and they dragged her from the nightclub. Revan blinked when her husband and Obi-Wan dragging the bounty hunter. She recognized her. Zem? You know her? Obi-Wan asked, surprised. Zam Wessel. She's a Claudite shapeshifter, Revan said, then looked at Zam. Do you know who it was that you were trying to kill? Zam grunted in pain and looked at Revan. The senator from Naboo. She took a hard breath when Naruto removed the kunai from her shoulder. Who hired you? Obi-Wan demanded, his voice with a harder edge than before. Zam just glares at him. It was just a job. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Jedi Knight known for his patience, snapped, tell us. Zam glared. That senator is gonna die soon anyway, and the next one won't make the same mistake I did. She taunted Obi-Wan. Zam, your wound is going to need treatment, Revan said, trying to appeal to the hunter. Obi-Wan cut her off. Who hired you? Tell me, tell us now. Zam shot the Jedi Knight a look filled with hate. Zam, please, Revan said. It was a bounty hunter called There was a FTZZZ sound and Zam twitches. She blinks in surprise and reverts to her Claudite form. All three turn, hearing a WEEEHOOOSH from above them. They turn and look up, seeing an armored rocket man taking off from a roof high above. Naruto and Revan exchange a surprised look. Obi-Wan looks down and touches Zam's neck, where he pulls out a small, wicked-looking dart. Toxic dart, he says, looking at it in the palm of his hand. Worse than that, Revan says, looking in the direction the rocket man had flown. Things have gotten so much worse. Naruto put a hand on his wife's shoulder. Could someone be impersonating him, : he mentally sent. Someone stupid enough to steal that armor has a death wish. No, it's him, Revan sent back. And I intend to find out why. Chapter 37. Anko growled as the speeder's engine gave up a very brutal sound, but taking a blaster round would do that. You have to admit, it was fun, Kushina said to her older sister. Corrective statement, it was glorious. HK added his opinion. Haku, who sported a smudge on her cheek, looked at Anko. You have to admit, that swoop gang won't mess with anyone again. Anko growled. What's wrong? Her twin asked. I didn't get to bust heads. She pouted, struggling to keep the speeder in the air and make it back to the temple. Flashback. The place they had hidden in to avoid the police had unfortunately been home to one of the many swoop gangs that lived in the lower levels of the city. Well boys, look what we got here. One of the Rhodians taunted. Should we let Zero in on this? Another asked. Nah. This is our territory, and we got us some girls here that I bet would catch a profit as a joy girl when they get a bit older. The Namake's daughters narrowed their eyes. HK. Kushina said as she pulled out some wire her father had given her recently. Young mistress? The droid asked, its red optics seemed to narrow. Shoot their left kneecaps out. The nearest Rhodian screamed as HK moved faster than any droid they'd ever seen before, and the sound of a blaster going off echoed in the area. Haku leapt from her seat, her hands in motion. Where there had been one dark-haired girl, now had a dozen, each one pulled out shuriken and launched them, calling out for Kage shuriken, and hundreds of shuriken struck several of the gang, while others had ducked behind swoop bikes after the first shot from HK. The protection didn't save them as Haku and Kushina, trained in the ninja arts, were carving a path of destruction in their ranks using taijutsu, and a variety of kunai, shuriken, and in Kushina's case monowire. HK was standing in the back of the speeder, his shots dropping target after target. Granted, he was shooting out kneecaps, but he would shoot both knees out, content in the knowledge he was following orders. After all, young mistress didn't say not to shoot both knees. The droid thought as it fired again. Anko wasn't happy. She was pinned down and unable to leave the safety of the seat. She was ducked down using the dashboard as cover. She heard the hood take a beating and swore as smoke rose up. Sith spawn. We'll need to fix that, Anko thought. HK. Target those idiots shooting up the speeder, she ordered. Compliance, the assassin droid said with a hint of glee as it turned the assault rifle towards the group using support pillars as cover. Eat hot lasers, meat sacks, HK intoned, and then to the surprise of the swoop gangsters used the grenade launcher and sent a frag grenade into their midst. Anko peeked over the dash, seeing the carnage and the remaining swoop gang members fleeing while her sisters stood there smirking. Op man, she whined even as Kushina hurried over to the speeder and started working on the wreck, having Haku get parts from the scattered swoop bikes. End flashback. I didn't get to do anything, Anko whined again. Kushina is better with fixing machines than us, Haku said to her twin sister. But I wanted to fight, Anko said as the temple came into view. You can have the next fight, Haku said to placate her sister. She sent the signal to the hangar controls and the speeder limped in and landed with a clank. Anko sighed and the three Namikaze children slipped from the speeder, and were sneaking along and froze seeing their mother standing there with her arms crossed. Anko, it's your turn. Kushina said. Jedi Temple, Council Chamber. Disturbing this is. Yoda said as Naruto and Obi-Wan gave their report. Revan and I have Senator Amidala in our quarters. Naruto said. After returning to the consulate they had packed her up and with Typho, and the double remaining there. Wise it is, surrounded by Jedi she will be. Yoda agreed. Troubling it is that the attacker was someone you knew. Naruto nodded. Mandalorians were very particular on who wore their armor, and that armor belonged to the adopted son of Jaster Mariel, Jango Fett. Revan and I plan on looking into it. We were hoping to have Obi-Wan escort the senator somewhere safe. Yoda, Mace Windu and Qui-Gon Jinn exchanged looks. Believe you do that the attempts on the senator aren't finished? Yoda inquired. Naruto nodded. Whomever can afford a Mandalorian as an assassin or a broker to hire assassins won't give up. Those Kuhans were too damn close. Naruto said, identifying the large centipede creatures. It would be best if we kept her on the move and away from the core at this time. She won't like that. Obi-Wan said, speaking up. Senator Amidala is adamant to be here for the vote about the military bill that is being brought up before the gathered Senate. Naruto bit his lip to keep from picking on his friend about his near-familiar address of Senator Amidala. It would be prudent to get her off planet. Qui-Gon said. But I doubt she would listen to us. She is rather stubborn. He said, shooting a look to his former Padawan to see the younger man nod. Perhaps the Chancellor could convince her. Mace said. Naruto winced, he wanted nothing to do with the man but agreed. He does have the authority to order her off planet. However, I believe we shouldn't trust him with the location. Yoda paused. You and Revan still feel something? Naruto nodded. It wasn't just the man's influence on Anakin, but Revan's own feelings about the man. How about we suggest she go to Naboo, but in fact Ben and the senator go elsewhere? You have somewhere in mind? Qui-Gon asked. Naruto nodded. I need to speak with Revan, but it could work. Yoda closed his eyes, and they could feel him consulting the Force. Agreed. Speak with the Chancellor I will. Keep hidden and safe the senator must be. Namikaze Chambers, Jedi Temple. Padme nearly laughed when she realized she and the children were nearly identical and pouting as they sat before the pacing Jedi Master. Just what in the name of the Force were the three of you thinking? She said, stopping and looking at her daughters who had the grace to look ashamed. HK was currently recharging in the next room. Revan had ordered him to power down. She did not want his exuberant answers at this point in time. We just wanted to get out of the temple. Anko said, looking mulish, a look Revan had seen on Naruto's face when he dug his feet in. The speeder is going to be in the repair shop for weeks. What did you three do this time? Declare war on the Bathans. Three voices carried out this time, talking at once. Enough. Revan said, using the big head jutsu she learned back on Ibanez all those years ago. Too long ago. Revan thought. And besides, the Bathans deserved what we did last time. Anko said it. Revan shivered thinking of the three children before her adding hair dye to the Bathans' drinks and all of them becoming plaid. Shaking her head she looked at Anko, technically the eldest. Do you three know that several of the masters are calling for your expulsion from the temple for the latest pranks you pulled? She looked at Haku and Kushina as well. Destroying a training room, a pillow war in the meditation chamber, and the time-delayed laundry soap in the room of 1,000 fountains. At this all three shared a look. Not to mention running away from Master Yoda, destroying the hangar doors and a speeder. I shudder to think of the laws you broke outside the temple. Her daughters shared a look. Revan turned to look at Padme. And you? Me? Padme said, looking surprised. Not going to the panic room after a near attack. Arguing with Captain Typho. I swear if you were my daughter, I'd... What? Padme demanded. The twins and Kushina watched as their mother turned towards the young woman they considered family. Turn you over my knee. I know your folks rarely did that to you and your sister, but I swear you need it. A chuckle had all of them turned to see Naruto leaning against the wall. You might want to let Ben spank her. Both Padme and Obi-Wan blushed at mental images they both had. Daddy. 3 voices filled the air and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze found himself being hugged by his 3 precious children. Done getting in trouble for the month? He asked. All 3 girls looked at him innocently. Yeah, that works so well. Naruto said, musing their hair. I invented that look long before you were born. He looked at Revan. So, what's the verdict? Grounded. She said. How was your meeting? Naruto looked at Revan, then at Padme. Yeah, about that. Chapter 38. Anko Namikaze grunted as she continued to balance on her thumb and index finger. Across the room Haku was doing the same thing while Kushina was stuck writing a report about the Jedi Code as well as the Ninja Code of Conduct and the differences between the two. Padme Amidala stood her back to the room looking out the bay window. When Naruto told them of what the council was thinking, she'd protested loudly about leaving when the vote was days away. Her protests continued until she'd been called to a meeting with the Supreme Chancellor and ordered to surrender to the protection of the Jedi. The Chancellor hoped she enjoyed her time back on Naboo. Once she was back in the Namikaze rooms in the temple, she learned that she wasn't going to Naboo, that had been a false trail. Revan returned and looked at her children and sighed. Padme. She called. What did you find? The senator asked. I checked on the dart that Django used. I'm going to a place near the Rishi Maze, on a world called Kamino. Padme frowned. Kamino? I never heard of it. Is it part of the Republic? Revan shook her head. Obi-Wan spoke to his friend Dexter. He used to travel the Outer Rim. Revan explained. But there's more. The world and the space around have been removed from the Jedi archives. What does that mean? Padme asked. Revan looked at her daughters. All right, you 3. Go wash up. She said, and all 3 filed from the room quickly, hoping that complying would get them off their punishments quicker. Once they were gone, Revan turned back to Padme and spoke. It means that the temple had been infiltrated and someone removed it from the archives. Padme swallowed at this. Someone skilled enough to walk into the heart of the Jedi Temple and do that. They were very powerful and dangerous. Well, can I know where I'm going to be hiding out, since it's not going to be back at Naboo? Revan smiled. Naruto is setting things up, you just need to be patient. Padme sighed, then perked up and thought. Naruto's homeworld? No, too far away. It would take more than a year of traveling at light speed without stops to get there. Revan thought of her own travel to and from Ibanez and her return to Coruscant all those years ago. There are times I think I want to take my family and return to that primitive world just to keep them safe from the darkness that is rising in the galaxy. Revan thought. She'd been very careful not to put the location of Ibanez in the archives, to the annoyance of several of the masters, but with Master Yoda's approval. If I don't know where I'm going, I won't know what to pack. Padme tried again, causing Revan to smirk. Nice try. But I've packed for you. She looked back towards where the children are. You won't be alone with Obi-Wan, I'm afraid. She said, seeing the younger woman blush. The 3 imps and HK are going to be with you while Naruto and I are splitting up as well. Padme blinked at this. Why? Revan sighed as she heard the girls arguing over who splashed who. I'll be tracking down Django, who I've learned has become quite a bounty hunter since the battle for Naboo 10 years ago. I've no clue about the rest of the Mandalorians, and that bothers me. She looked out the window with Padme for a moment. Naruto wants to follow a lead with With what? Padme asked. Not what, who? Naruto's going to follow Anakin Skywalker next time he leaves. There is much anger in that boy, and it's gotten worse over the years. Padme blinked, trying to place the name. The boy you saved from slavery? Revan nodded. Too many strange events surround him, neither I or Naruto are worried. Temple hangar. Well, the ship checks out. Naruto said, coming down the ramp and looking at Obi-Wan Kenobi looked up, a tad nervous. I can't believe you and Revan are sending us along with the children. Naruto covered his mouth. Not here. He hissed, then in a normal tone of voice he continued, you'll all enjoy time on Naboo where it's safe. Obi-Wan followed him up the ramp of the Falcon. Once the boarding ramp was closed, Naruto sighed. You'll take that ship, I've got a fighter hidden not far thanks to Dex. Revan will go after Fett. He's going to give her answers if he wants to or not. And you really think Skywalker is part of this? Obi-Wan asked. Naruto nodded. The Chancellor wasn't surprised Padme was attacked the last couple of times, he was surprised she survived. Obi-Wan gave him a look. And Master Yoda agrees with me. Naruto continued, ignoring his friend's look. Now, the children are going with you as cover. And Naruto grinned. And to act as chaperones. Obi-Wan Kenobi gave his longtime friend a flat look. I'm flattered. Naruto said. But I'm married. He headed to the cockpit. I've programmed you destination into the Navi computer. HK will unlock it once you've made the jump to light speed, and it will alter course then. I don't like all this cloak and dagger stuff you and Revan are pulling. Neither do we. Naruto said softly. I would like to just stay home with my children. I've missed large gaps of their life, and this is pissing me off. Naruto said. The two friends were silent for some time. Coruscant control, this is the Millennium Falcon escorting the Gamma Rasengan. Identify the clear lanes. Falcon heading December 24, 13 is clear. Good sailing and safe journey to Naboo. The controller said. Revan scowled as she looked at the communications and shut it off. Thanks a lot, asshole. What a way to broadcast. She shook her head. Next to her, Kagan Jin was acting as her navigator. Thanks for coming along, she said as they followed Private Yacht out of the atmosphere. Kagan relaxed as the genjutsu that Revan had covering him vanished. He had looked like Naruto for all to see. And miss out on something that is bound to be more exciting than sitting and meditating. He said, giving her a small smile. Besides, I believe my former Padawan and the Senator have the harder task. At her look he elaborated. They have your children and droid with them. Revan smirked. A light on her console lit up and she frowned. That was fast. She muttered. Activating the reflectors. She hit the private frequency. Obi-Wan, you better make the jump now. We've got 6 unmarked fighters coming at us at high speed from the equator. Making the jump. May the Force be with you, Master. He said, and moments later the ugly orange yacht made the jump to hyperspace. You want me to man the turret gun? Kagan asked. No need. Revan said and made a cross seal that the other Jedi had seen Naruto make, and a heartbeat later there were 4 clones of Revan. Battle stations. She ordered. She flipped a switch. Love, one's slipping away. I know. It's Skywalker. He left the Chancellor's office rather quickly. I'm coming up from around the night side. Naruto's voice came back over. I'm on him. Do you need help? Negative. Those fighters are no match for the Falcon. Good hunting. Naruto said as she saw a Jedi starfighter coming from the southern pole and link up with a floating hyperdrive ring. Where did he get that? Kagan asked. Not too many of the craft had been made, and he wasn't aware that Naruto had access to them. A friend. He's got her 2D2 from Padme to help him. Revan said as the Falcon's quad lasers opened fire. She saw the craft jump to lightspeed after another fighter that was black, but it looked similar to the Jedi craft. Strap in Kagan. Revan said as she had the Falcon performing moves that would make a stunt fighter envious. Hang on back there. She called to her clones as two of them were manning the military-grade quad laser turrets she had applied to the Falcon, while the third was back near the engine, ready to redistribute power. The fourth one was manning the communications and sensors behind Kagan. Kagan Jinn winced as Revan turned the gravity compensators down and corkscrewed the Falcon, avoiding incoming freighters and giving the pursuit ships a hell of a running battle. Revan laughed. Come on, you slackers. Is this the best you got? Revan taunted while her clones echoed her. Force helps us. Kagan Jinn thought as he realized that Revan may be the oldest Jedi Master on record at over 4,000 years. But she acts like a youngling at times. It's scary. You locked onto his engine signature R2? Naruto asked. An affirmative whistle told him that the tracking device he launched had connected, and he would be able to find the Chancellor's aide wherever he went. Good. Keep our power output down to 40%. We'll keep our distance for now. R2 whistled and beeped, and Naruto found he liked the little astromech droid a lot. Now, where are you going, Skywalker? Naruto must as they jumped in and out of hyperspace for the next several hours, which was becoming frustrating to Naruto, but thus far Skywalker had yet to land on any planet. What is your Game Boy? Naruto thought into the 7th hour. Padme looked at the world as the Gamma Raisingan exited hyperspace. What planet is this again? It's not on any of the star charts. Obi-Wan, who had finally managed to get the 3 Namikaze children settled inside. This is the first stop over. We'll make the next jump in a couple moments. The planet that Naruto and Revan are sending us to isn't listed in any of the Republic databases. It's one Revan knows about. So, what's it called? Padme asked with a hint of exasperation. The world we're going to is called Len. And it was a very important world to Revan 4,000 years ago. Chapter 39. Rakatan System. There it is. Obi-Wan said. He looked at Anko, who had conned him into letting her pilot, and he would admit that all 3 girls flew better than he did on his best day with the help of the Force. So that's the world Mama talks about. Kushina said from her seat near a monitor with Padme. Your mom told you about this world? Padme asked. Kushina nodded, while Haku spoke up from another seat. The Rakatans are extinct now. It's home mostly to Gizka and Rancor. Be careful of the asteroids. Obi-Wan said from the co-pilot's seat. Those aren't asteroids, Uncle Ben. Haku said. It's wreckage from the battles that took place here. It's a graveyard. Haku said, lowering her head, her hair hanging over her eyes. 4,000 years and no one's cleaned this up. Padme said in surprise. Kushina spoke up next. It's not that. Back then the Republic wanted to cover up the events around Mama's redemption. It was hard for them to explain, as many in that time didn't understand it. Anko snorted. They made it a historical site, but over time and wars its records were destroyed, and since it's off the used routes. She shrugged as her hands moved calmly over controls. The wreckage is like a belt of asteroids, and the surface shouldn't be much better. Most likely it's been overrun by the jungle. Haku supplied. You 3 know a lot about this world. Obi-Wan said in surprise. Kushina smiled. Mama said it was best to know about her past, so she taught us about the world she's visited and the numerous species. That's very impressive. Padme said, giving Kushina a hug. The 8-year-old accepted it and smiled. Anko shook her head as she maneuvered the yacht with ease through the field of debris. Obi-Wan and Padme looked at the wreckage of ancient Republic cruisers and Sith ships. The wreckage in a higher orbit towards the sun was the Star Forge. Haku said, continuing while watching her twin fly. It was built by the Rakutans and later used by the Sith Lords Revan and then Malak to build a massive fleet from where they nearly conquered the known galaxy at the time. Obi-Wan always felt a chill with how easily the Namikaze spoke of Revan's fall and then her redemption. It's like they're discussing yesterday's pod races, he thought. As they skimmed the atmosphere, Padme rose and stood behind Obi-Wan, putting a hand to his shoulder. They both looked out the canopy and smiled as the sun shone on the crystal blue waters. Some of the downed ships made new isles and reefs, Haku said as they flew over wreckage that was overgrown with vegetation. There, Obi-Wan said, pointing at a large enclosed beach. Anko nodded as she brought the Gamma Raisin gun in, the retro thrusters firing as she lowered the landing struts. Kushina, go power up HK, Haku told her sister. I'll get the scrolls with the camping gear. Anko sighed as she powered down the engines. Orders, Master Kenobi? She asked, looking at Obi-Wan. Well, he stroked his beard. While the others set up, we'll patrol the area and set up defenses, he said to Anko, who grinned and watched as she unstrapped and went to get her gear. Is that a good idea? Padme worried. Obi-Wan looked at her and grinned. I'd be more worried for anything we encounter. Naruto and Revan have taught them well. Naruto told me that his daughters would have graduated early from the Ninja Academy on his world and already been doing missions that we assign masters and Padawan teams. Padme blinked and grabbed his arm to stop him. You be careful, she ordered, pleaded. Obi-Wan nodded and took her hand in his. We'll be fine. Don't worry. He squeezed her hand to reassure her and headed towards the back of the ship. Padme watched him until he and Anko were entering the forest, and Haku called her over to show her how storage scrolls worked. Space. Naruto scowled as he saw Skywalker's ship make another jump. It was tiring as Naruto was forced to jump and make a micro-jump to realign the readings before he followed the beacon on Skywalker's ship. I hope Rev and the others are having more fun, he thought as he made another jump, and he vowed to never fly a starfighter again. They are just too damned cramped. Millennium Falcon. Revan saw they had several hours left in transit and went to get a mug of tea. She saw Kagan was asleep on the bench. She knew the man was in his 70s and unlike her and Naruto, he tired easily. Status? She turned and saw his eyes were closed, but she should have known better, but she didn't rely on the Force like many Jedi did. On her ship and in the temple, it was more of a passive use. Another hour in hyperspace. I've searched the databases I have, and I don't recall Kamino, but then in 4,000 years I've been to a lot of places. Kagan sat up. Your contact, did he have anything of use? Revan smirked. You mean Dex? Kagan Jin blinked then laughed. I should have known. Anyway, he's the one who identified the dart's origin. We get to Kamino and will most likely fin Django. You try contacting the Mandalorians? Kagan asked. I sent the signal, but there was no reply. Which isn't unusual. They could be anywhere in the galaxy doing Force knows what. Revan said. Kagan got his own tea and sat down. I've been meaning to ask. Kagan said. You've spoken with Yoda about Obi-Wan being master to the twins. What are your thoughts for Kushina? Revan sipped her tea. I know I can't be her master. And Naruto has taught them a lot of his ninja training. He says they could have graduated from the Ninja Academy by now and Kushina would be an early release, what they call a prodigy though Naruto, and I hate that word. Revan sipped her tea again, using the time to gather her thoughts. If I may? Kagan asked. She nodded. We have a youngling that I believe would benefit under yours and Naruto's care. I'll introduce you to her after this is settled, but for Kushina, I know I might be on in years. Revan smiled. I could think of no one better. She does like to take things apart. Kagan smiled. I do recall hearing on her adventure in the archives. Jocasta Nu was not pleased with the disassembly of some of the library computers. Revan smiled and remembered the librarian scolding her, and then Kushina, about decorum inside the archives. Naruto and I are always keeping an eye on her. She had HK in pieces in the living room recently. Kagan laughed at this. The image of the assassin droid being stripped down would have been something he would have liked to see. Kagan and many of the masters felt unease around the droid, especially when it went on to name and tell stories of some of its past kills. Many Jedi were listed from 4,000 years ago. I know. Revan said, and when Kagan looked at her she explained. HK makes many in the temple nervous, but he is loyal, and is the only friend I have from my past that isn't a holocron. I made him, he's been my companion for so long. I admit his personality still needs work. I made him when I was a Sith Lord and I've modified his programming a lot since then. But there are some quirks I just can't seem to get rid of. I guess in his own way HK has become sentient. Revan shrugged. Maybe the Force had a hand in it, maybe something else. But HK has a destiny still, I feel. Kagan nodded. He had seen some of the knights train against the droid in the temple, and he had to admit it did push them to new limits. Mace tried to beat HK, and the first 2 times he lost. Revan said. Heck, I built him, and there are times HK surprises me. Naruto has taught him some things over the years and added to his arsenal. Kagan shuddered and looked up at a flashing light on a nearby console. Time to get to work. Revan said as she flicked the switch and headed for the cockpit. Kagan followed and was sitting down when Revan accepted the message. Rev? I don't know if you get this. I'm above a world called Geonosis. Skywalker has landed there. I've done a quick scan, there are a lot of Trade Federation ships on the surface. I'm going in for a look. The message cut out and Revan scowled as something pricked the back of her mind telling her Naruto was walking into danger. You better be careful. She muttered as she checked, and they were entering the system where Kamino was supposed to be. Hang on. Revan said to Kagan, but her thoughts were with her husband and children. Rakatan World, Len. Run. Anko yelled as she rushed into the dense foliage. Obi-Wan heard the roar and knew that he was not going to enjoy this. Get a move on, Uncle. He followed Anko and they took many twists and turns. Behind them they could hear something rather large crashing through the jungle behind them. Anko, what did you do? Obi-Wan asked, his strides keeping pace with the younger girl. He could feel her using chakra to enhance her muscles and watched as she leapt ahead again. I was just looking. I swear. Anko said as they burst from the foliage and slid to a stop at the edge of a cliff. Not good. Obi-Wan muttered. Looking down they saw the Gamma Raisingan parked on the beach. We took a wrong turn. Anko muttered. She saw her sisters had placed the electric barrier over the entrance to the path they had used. Suggestions, Master? Anko said as they heard the crashing get louder. Now you're being proper? He said looking at her and Anko shrugged. Obi-Wan muttered that she acted a lot like her father, which got him a rather foxy grin like her father's. The roar was closer. You had to tickle a sleeping rancor. He said with exasperation. It was cute when it was asleep. Anko protested. As the rancor cleared the jungle foliage, Obi-Wan grabbed Anko and leapt over the side of the cliff, Anko laughing the whole way down and asking if they do this again. Just like her father. Obi-Wan thought as he landed, kicking up a lot of sand as he'd used the Force to cushion their fall. He looked up and saw no sign of the rancor and thanked the Force that it had likely given up. Obi-Wan? He turned to see Padme coming from the shade of the Gamma Raisingan. She was carrying a blaster. We're fine. Anko tried to adopt a rancor is all. Anko crossed her arms. Nothing wrong with that. Dad's got. Haku Haku was there and covered her twin's mouth with her hand before whispering in her ear. Obi-Wan cocked an eyebrow. Ninja secrets. Anko said after her sister released her mouth, not for a desire to do so, but because Anko had licked her palm. Go wash up, Padme said. She looked at Obi-Wan. It seems you can't resist getting into trouble. There was something in her eyes, but for the life of him he couldn't figure it out. So he answered with a shrug and a self-grin. Padme's hand twitched, and she looked like she was going to say something when Kushina called them that dinner was ready. Chapter 40. Rakuten World, Len. Padme wondered how Revan and Naruto did it. She tried keeping up with just Kushina, and the child was leaving her in the dust. And they raised all three of them. Padme thought as she watched Obi-Wan sparring with Anko and Haku with practice sabers. She noticed he was wearing a sleeveless shirt and a pair of pants. He does have a cute butt. She thought, remembering a conversation she had with Revan, and the Jedi Master seemed intent on seeing how deep Padme could blush. Kushina, leave HK alone, Padme admonished as the girl had been sneaking up on the droid as it stood guard, its sensors seeking out anything that would threaten the camp. The 8-year-old tried, and Padme shook her head. Your mother made it very clear that you are not to take him apart again, Padme said as she recalled the long list of does and don'ts that the children would try and get away with. Anko was not happy with just a rancor tried to keep one of those killer fish. Padme thought with a shiver. Earlier in the day Anko had conned Obi-Wan into them fishing for fresh fish. The Jedi Knight had agreed, and they'd set up on one of the reefs off the beach. It had gone fine until Anko had managed to hook one of the shark-like creatures, and then to the shock of Obi-Wan and Padme the girl dove into the water. Both thought they were going to have to tell Revan and Naruto about the death of their child when Haku rushed past them and reached into the water. An explosion later and Anko was swimming toward shore dragging the shark that was easily 30 feet. Once it was beached, the adults watched in shock as all three children began skinning, gutting and slicing the shark up with a practiced ease. Haku and Kushina began cooking the meat while Anko then smirked. Wait till I tell Dad the size of this one. Obi-Wan had gone on to lecture mode until Anko told them of some of the trips the family had taken. But Dad let us go hunting with him on the forest floor of Kashyyyk, Anko protested. Obi-Wan paused as he remembered Naruto talking about it and shook his head. Be that as it may. No more risks like that. You'll give me premature gray hair, and your father is doing that fast enough on his own. Anko promised not to do it without consulting him. Obi-Wan missed that her hands were behind her back. Shaking her head, Padme looked at Kushina. I'm sorry, what was that? The child smiled at her and repeated her question. When are you and Uncle Ben going to get married? Padme sputtered. He's my friend. She finally got out. Kushina looked at her. So, Mama and Daddy are friends. Padme blinked, and she didn't want to admit that a child of 8 was breaking apart her carefully thought of excuses that she made over the past decade. He's a Jedi Knight, she said. So, Mom's a Jedi Master and Daddy is a Jedi Knight and a Neo-Sanin as well as former Hokage. Padme didn't know what the last two were, but she was right. Naruto had been given the rank of Jedi Knight after the battle for Naboo, knighted by Master Yoda himself. Your dad and Mom follow the old code, Padme countered. Kushina waved a hand. They aren't really important, you know. They're more like guidelines. Kushina had disassembled all the defenses that Padme had developed between her and Obi-Wan over the last 10 years. Her safety net wiped out faster than the three kids ate those strange packets of noodles that they had gotten from Dex's diner before they'd left. Kushina skipped away, allowing Padme to think. The former queen of Naboo looked out and watched Obi-Wan. As if sensing her thoughts, he paused his instruction of the twins and his blue eyes met hers. He looked at her a moment before giving her a bearded grin. Padme felt her stomach twitch, and she just knew Revan must have put her children up to this, but right now she couldn't find a reason to complain. Kamino. The Millennium Falcon landed amidst the blowing storm. Revan looked out as she powered the ship down. "I hate water planets," she muttered. Her time on Manon had not been pleasant for her time as a Sith Lord or a redeemed Jedi. "It could be worse," Kagan said. "How so?" "It could be a volcanic world." Shaking her head, Revan gave him a look. "Remind me to tell you that your optimism needs work." Kagan chuckled as she lowered the boarding ramp. "Rain, rain, go away." Revan hummed the tune she had learned while on Ibanez. "What was that?" Kagan asked as they pulled up the hoods of their robes and ran towards the docking pad's doors, splashing with each step. "Nursery rhyme," Revan said as the doors opened and they were greeted by one of the long-necked Kaminoans. Revan flapped her hood back and shook the rain from her as best she could while Kagan did the same. The short distance from the ship to the doors had them soaked. "Welcome to Tapoka City, Master Jedi. I am Tonwi." Revan and Kagan wiped the rain from their faces and blinked at the tall pasty white with large almond-shaped eyes. "Everything is ready. The Prime Minister expects you," Tonwi informs them. Revan and Kagan exchange looks before Revan asks warily, "We're expected?" Tonwi tips her head. "Of course. He is anxious to see you. After all these years, we were beginning to think you weren't coming. Now please, this way." The pair of Jedi masked their surprise and moved down the corridor following Tonwi cautiously. The door slides open and Tonwi enter followed by the Jedi and cross to where Lama Su the Prime Minister rises, smiling from behind his desk. "May I present Lama Su, Prime Minister of Kamino," Tonwi says, making the introductions. "And this is Master Jedi." She frowns, realizing that she didn't get the names of the Jedi. Revan smiles and steps forward and gives a slight bow. "Revan Namikaze and my companion is Jedi Master Kagan Jinn," she says, making the introductions for them. Lama Su motions. "Please have a seat," indicating a pair of chairs. The Jedi take their seats while Tonwi hovers. The room is bathed in brilliant white light, and the pair notice the high-tech look to the room. "I trust you are going to enjoy your stay here. We are most happy that you have arrived at the best part of the season," Lama Su said. "Best part of the season?" Revan thought, thinking of the rain and wind. "I officially am taking this world off my place to visit list," she thought. Kagan answered for them when it seemed Revan wasn't going to. "You make us feel most welcome," he said from his chair. Lama Su nodded his head. "And now, on to business," he said. "You will be delighted to hear we are on schedule. 200,000 units are ready, with another 1,000,000 on the way." Revan didn't miss a beat. "That is good news," she said, improvising. Her ability to lie she blamed on her husband, although she was far older than him and had more experience with it. "He loves me and will take the blame for my bad habits," Revan assured herself. Lama Su seemed happy to hear this. "Please tell your master Sifo Dyas that we have every confidence his order will be met on time and in full." "He is well, I hope?" Revan blinked. "I'm sorry, Master. Jedi Master Sifo Dyas. He's still a leading member of the Jedi Council, is he not?" Revan felt Kagan tense. "Oh, yes. Sifo Dyas." Lama Su seemed pleased and rose from his seat. "You must be anxious to inspect the units for yourself." Revan stood as well. "That's why we are here," she said. He glances at Kagan, told him to follow her lead for now until they knew more of what was going on. Geonosis. Naruto had left his borrowed starfighter in a valley some distance away from the coordinates he'd gotten. He was using the mountains to make his way, smirking as he used a chakra-enhanced leap to carry him over a large gorge. He landed and blinked at what he saw in the next valley. Fuck. That summed it up when he saw nearly 100 battle droid control ships. He studied the canyons and he knew from his flyby that the minerals and the rocks protected anything on the ground from being scanned. It's an army. The Republic is so boned. He looked towards where the Force was telling him Skywalker was, and he made a hard choice. He turned back towards where his starfighter was parked. He had to make a long-distance call. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.